Get into it. Sold Not For Sale podcast. Coach Colin here. We got Joe Rogan talking about how the Trump assassination has been forgotten. We're going to touch on that a little bit after I play the Rogan clip. And also, Rogan brings up who is doing the polling. MSNBC brings up this polling that they keep showing. You know, CNN does the same thing. But I'm actually going to show you a little bit about the polling, who is behind it, and then I'm going to link them to the mainstream media. Let's just get into it. And then I'm going to show you an actual, honest polling YouTube channel, website. They're on X as well. They do really honest reporting. When Kamala was in the lead, they reported on it. When Trump's actually in the lead, they report on it. And somehow their honest opinion is not lining up with what MSNBC is doing. And I'm going to show you how, or why I think that is. So let's get into that. Going to be showing you some stuff about the polling industry. It's just interesting stuff. But first, let's get into the Rogan clip. Let's go.
It's real? This is crazy. The whole thing's crazy. And then not a press conference about the shooter.
Yeah.
Not
and
a
not
press
only that,
conference.
But it's like not a month later. It's, how do they do it? Nobody remembers it.
Right. They memory hold it.
Yeah. Memory hold it. It's like as if it never happened.
Well, there was so little reporting on how it happened, how it could have happened, who the shooter was. They get to the kid's house and it's completely scrubbed. He doesn't have any silverware in his home. Like someone was, and you know,
his phone. It takes him what, a week and a half even to like open it.
Oh, we can't get into his phone.
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah. That's
well, how about
so strange? My son, the 17-year-old son, can get into your phone, but they can't get into your.
Well, also the fact that this kid, someone from outside the FBI's office in D.C., had been visiting. They track they have phone, they have ad.
Oh, right.
You know, so they can
they can ping your phone off of that triangulate on the.
So there was a phone that was going from outside of D.C. to this kid multiple times. So what's going on? This kid's training for quite a while, for over a year. It seems like he was involved in like shooting training and preparing for. It's like he was being.
He went
groomed.
there at least like 40 times. They said.
I don't know how many times.
Rifle.
It was quite a few.
It was quite a few.
Yeah, but the whole thing is very strange. It's like how is this not like a deep investigation that's on the front page of every newspaper where people are trying to figure out
outrage from
was this a government conspiracy to kill the presidential candidate?
Yeah.
What happened?
Right. Was it?
Right. And
we go back to the Kennedy. No, go ahead.
I thought the moment he got shot and lived and he goes fight, 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 I'm like, it's over.
Yeah.
He's going to win this.
Yeah, me too.
He's going to win this.
That's it.
Yeah.
Put up his fist like that is like.
And then next thing you know, Kamala Harris has one good speech and everybody's cheering. And you're like, wow. It's just completely flip-flop. All the talk shows, everyone's with her. A person who just a month prior was being hidden because she would say so many dumb things. And she would, and every time she had to talk openly with no script, she would blunder and things up. Now all of a sudden she's the perfect candidate.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild.
It's super wild. They did have and disenfranchised all those voters who had voted for Biden.
Yeah.
If you're talking about democracy.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they have no say about it.
No primary. There's no one else gets to choose. And they use the FEC filing for Biden's money. So like she gets to access that war chest. So the whole thing's crazy. And the fact that no one's freaking out about the dangers of this, and the fact that this is the first time ever that someone who nobody voted for in the primaries, had zero delegates, is now being the person who is at the front.
There's a point ahead in the polls.
Yeah, allegedly. Yeah. I always say with the polls, like, says who? Here's the thing about polls. Who the f*** are you asking? And who's talking to you? The people that have the least amount to do, the people that are willing to answer polls, the people that when you call them up say, do you have a few minutes of my time? They're like, well, yes, I do. Most people say, get the f*** out of here, and they hang up the phone. The vast majority of people don't answer polls.
Yeah.
So you have 1 point ahead of the people dumb enough to answer polls. Everybody else, it's like, we don't know. And so that's why the gaslighting continues.
Well, let's put it this way, though. They've done a very good job because they do have the Republicans back on their heels about it.
Oh, yeah, and I didn't think it was going to happen.
I didn't think so either. I thought, well,
leading up to it, I thought he was going to steamroll Biden. The administration He's done a terrible job over the last 3 years. The border's wide open. Everyone's freaking out. There's 2 wars going on simultaneously that could lead us into World War III at any moment. Everybody's freaking out. I'm like, when Trump was in office, there was no wars. There was no new wars. There was nothing new that he was doing that was putting people in jeopardy. And then all of a sudden, it was this fucking complete, total turnaround orchestrated by the media, and it happened right in front of our eyes. And now Kamala is this darling of everybody. It's like, this is wild. Like, the least popular vice president of all time is now one of the most popular presidential candidates of all time, like that.
Incredible. And, they're going to, what we're talking about right now, we're going to sound like conspiracy theorists.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm used to that.
Yeah. I'm just getting used to it.
Super comfortable with it. Super comfortable with it. One of Reagan's greatest phrases, in my opinion, is the 9 most terrifying words. I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
I'm here to help. Yeah.
It's so true. Like, these people are just like any other person in any position of power. They want to maintain power and they want to make as much money as possible. It's in every corporation. When corporations get in trouble for lying about their products, it's the same thing. It's the same thing in every business.
You got a risk management.
Yeah.
They show up at the door, and it's amazing how the times today are so much like when Reagan was elected. We had inflation. Out the window, we had 20% interest rates. I remember that because I bought a house actually during that time. There was a feeling of malaise in the country that Carter even spoke of. We had hostages in Iran.
Wow. 20% interest rates. This guy's buying houses back when Reagan was in office. Wow. That's why I always like the perspective of older people. That's why I've said this before in videos, but when an older guy sees what's going on, and he clicks in and he's like, I gotta speak up. They're not always in positions of fame and fortune and all that stuff. But for him to understand, like, oh, I can see what's happening here. They're also from the generation where people actually used to be alarmed about communism and Marxism. You didn't just say it and it was like, oh, you're just saying that because you don't like them and they're a Democrat. No, it was a real thing. You threw that out there. People went, who is? They were alerted. It's just not the same anymore, and it really should be. I'm not gonna start about Dave Smith saying Kamala Harris is not a communist or not a Marxist. Very. I'm not even gonna get into it. Listen, let's just get right into what they were talking about now. The Trump assassination, forgotten. I talk about this often. The media is what they do, these mainstream media. They don't reflect what the people want. They don't reflect people's reality. That's what they're supposed to do. They reflect and ask the questions that people want answers to. They actually just create reality. If you watch them and only them, they will mold your reality. They will slowly get you to see that Donald Trump is Hitler and Kamala Harris is Martin Luther King. They'll slowly start to mold that around your mind, and you won't even have an explanation for why you think these things. And I just jumped over here. Should make this a little smaller, but I mean, I don't really have to. I was just searching MSNBC here. I just went and did a little search. MSNBC, Trump assassination attempt. And if you look at all the right here, everything's from a month ago. Everything is from 1 month ago. This is something, but it's just talking about divine intervention. So nothing really about Trump's the shooting, nothing about the Secret Service. Everything is from a month ago. That's what they do. And then I jumped over to CNN to see the same thing. Again, CNN, Trump assassination. And I just went to go check it out. Like, let me see this here, right? And it's just all from a month ago. Month ago. So what they did to make people forget is they just stopped talking about it. That's just what they do. They just stop talking about it and people forget about it. And they just move on to other things. Like, oh man, I don't know if you guys have heard. I mean, Trump's a racist. And then the next thing you know, you're like, oh, okay. He met up with a bunch of black people and allowed them to talk to him. And, that's because he's racist, just so you guys know. And it's like, oh, okay. They go into that whole thing. And just so you know, Kamala Harris was walking on water yesterday. It was quite the spectacle. It was amazing. And if you don't believe it, you're a racist. And you're just like, all right, I guess, wow, amazing things going on in the news today. Anyway, we're jumping into the whole polling thing. Now, keep this lady's face in mind, okay? Keep this lady's face in mind. You got Joe Scarborough or Dilbert, whatever you like to call him. He goes by both names, I hear. He answers to both. But they're going to be talking about the polling that they talk about, that they show people on a daily, not really daily basis, maybe every few days, maybe every week. But here, let's just get into this clip.
May, we saw Biden trailing in all of the swing states, or at best tied. Right now, Harris is either leading or tied with Trump in those swing states. There's one state, Nevada, which she's still trailing in. But overall, if you look at those 7 swing states, Harris is up, again, within the margin, but up 48-47. Biden was down by 3 points. So it's a reset. What's, to me, the most remarkable piece of this poll, it's what we've been seeing in surveys now that have been coming out in the last week or so, is how little she has been burdened, shall we say, by her association with the administration. She's the sitting vice president, and yet 59% of voters in these swing states think that she is basically the change candidate. She's turning the page from Trump and Biden. She is a generational change, obviously, but they believe that too. And even though Trump is ahead on issues like immigration and the economy, on inflation, obviously the number one issue for so many voters, she's only trailing Trump by 6 points. I think if Biden were in, Biden were in this race, it would be a much bigger margin.
Amy, when you were here last with those polls that showed so much of this race had swung toward Donald Trump, there was, as you know, among Democrats, a sense of almost resignation midsummer of the debate was a disaster.
Okay, perfect. You heard them call her Amy, right? Right? I thought I was tripping out when I first found this. Let's move over here real quick. So if you didn't notice, if you didn't realize, the polls that they were doing here, the polls in the corner there, you see it says the Cook Political Report, right? So I was like, let me look up the Cook. And then I look up the people who are part of the team. Let me make this a little more digestible for everybody watching. So then I go and check out the team. Amy Walker's on the team. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. She was just on the screen there, but she was on the screen for MSNBC. And then I'm like, okay, let me look a little deeper. Let me see her full bio. And then I look and I see she's a regular contributor to PBS. She's a regular contributor. Let me just go here. She's a regular panelist on NBC's Meet the Press and CNN's Inside Politics. So she works in the mainstream media. I was like, what? I mean, this is what I was looking for, but I didn't think I'd just find it outright like this. So the person who's bringing you the polls on the mainstream media is also working within the mainstream media. I'm not saying that there's any financial incentive. For all I know, she's doing it for free. She's doing it just to get the good word out, just spreading the good gospel of Kamala Harris and all of her disciples, But I just found that very, very interesting. When you start looking at who these people, this is CNN now, who they look at for their polling, it all becomes very interesting. So now I'm going to play this a little bit, and then we're going to go into Rasmussen. If you don't know about Rasmussen, please, if you're on X, follow them. I do not know these people. I do not get paid for this, but they poll every single day. So a lot of what these companies do, what I'm starting to learn from listening to Rasmussen's videos, a lot of what they do is they will find a snapshot and they will just report that snapshot as though it's the current thing of the day, but it's not. And that's why Rasmussen is actually so much better, because they're doing it daily. So let me just get into this really quick.
Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. This is among registered voters. What do we see here? It's a very similar picture. Biden versus Trump women. Biden has a larger advantage in those Great Lake battleground states, scoring those.
I'm speeding this guy up a little bit, okay?
New York Times, Siena College polls at 10 points. But again, that surge among women, we're seeing the same thing in those battleground states as we saw nationally. Kamala Harris up 17 points among women. Men, very little change. Donald Trump doing a little bit worse, but still a very clear advantage. But the same story in the swing states as we see nationally. The gender gap was working for Donald Trump against Joe Biden, and now it's working against him, against Kamala Harris.
Is this the same, smaller, or bigger than? Can you put it in context? I mean, is it the same that we normally see?
Yeah. All right. So let's take a look. Let's go through time, particularly here. All right. This is the Democrat versus the Republican for president. Again, these are these key Great Lake battleground states: Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. 2020 and 2016 are final. These are the exit polls. Yeah. 2024 is now. Look at the women margin. Look at what's going on here. Look how much better Kamala Harris is doing among women voters. It was 11 points Hillary Clinton back in 2016, 13 points in 2020. Look at this margin now, 17 points. Interestingly, the gender gap becoming wider over time. It's much wider this year than what we're normally expecting, because in fact Donald Trump is winning men voters by 15 points. That's better than he did in 2020 in these same states, and it's even better than he did in 2016, although just slightly better. But the bottom line here is Kamala Harris is winning this race right now, at least in these key battleground states, because of what she's doing with women voters. Women voters are energized, and it is the reason that Kamala Harris turned a deficit that Joe Biden had into a lead.
And also, just really quick, when we talk about we do not know, because there's a lot that goes into it, that this is because she's a woman. It's just their support for her.
Correct. Yeah. We don't know. We don't necessarily know the reason. We just know she's doing better with women voters, significantly better than Joe Biden was, and better than either Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton did back in 2016.
Fascinating. Great stuff.
So, very interesting stuff. And this is what most of the population will watch every single day. But then when you get into these people, Rasmussen, I mean, this right here, I mean, somebody was good enough to actually put this on their channel. Let me see if I can get a little closer here. I'm at the age where I need glasses, my friends. Oh, gosh. Okay, I can read it a little bit. Let me make sure I'm pointing it out for you. So it says Kamala Harris here, Donald Trump here, third candidate. So we have, I have to make this bigger or something. Man, I'm getting older. It's not even getting bigger. What are we doing here, folks? Come on. You serious right now? Anyway. All right. Let me just read this. So we have Kamala Harris at 43%. Okay. And this is between, and then Donald Trump, we have 49. Other candidate, we got 3%. Then it says male. We have Kamala Harris, 44%. Donald Trump, 50%. Some other candidate, obviously RFK, 4%. Then we have in the females, we have Kamala Harris, 47%. Donald Trump, 49%. Then we got 2%. Then we have 18 to 35. Kamala Harris, I believe that is, I don't want to get this wrong. Let me just pull this up. We got I believe this is 46%. But either way, what I'm trying to show here is that he's leading in every aspect. He is actually leading right now. Again, these polls were put out on the same day. It's very interesting stuff. Now, I'm actually going to play, this is directly from the Rasmussen YouTube channel. Check this channel out, definitely. But they're actually bringing us some real good information here. So check this out.
Perceived to be more competent than Joe Biden. So in our opinion, if you switch the candidates, I would expect to see something like a Trump plus 3 or 4 lead. And what I have to tell you today is that Trump is winning the race right now by 3 to 4 points, and we're going to get into that. But what is happening now, if we go to the Trump plus Harris numbers, is that the aggregate has swung 4 points left. There is a sea of blue here where there was not one in the Trump versus Biden races. And that makes absolutely no sense to us because, again, Kamala Harris is a worse candidate than Joe Biden. Joe Biden sailed to a presidency based on a massive history of public service and perceived competence. So why did this happen? Well, I can tell you our numbers here are still holding up the aggregate. There's a few other pollsters showing Trump winning. But in my opinion, the real issue is this. All of a sudden, a week after Kamala Harris got anointed, the polling industry got super uninterested in figuring out the state of the race. Everybody tripped all over themselves to poll between July 21st, when she was selected, and August 4th. There were a ton of polls and about as many polls as there were through most of June and July. We're talking about, 8 to 13, 14 polls. Now, all of a sudden, and I will say that this chart was produced on the 14th. There have been another poll or two. But basically, in the last 2 weeks here, a week and a half, there's been like 3 or 4 non-Rasmussen reports, national general election polls. It's almost like the entire industry went right into the field as soon as Kamala Harris was getting her bounce, liked the results they got, and then said, I think we're done here. And that's been pretty effective because what it's allowed them to do is flip the betting market because it's trading on old information. It's also allowed them to be very selective about what gets put into the national news media cycle. You can look at what happened last Sunday with the carefully selected 3 states that New York Times Siena put out that everybody was freaking out about. But at the end of the day, there have not really been that many polls put out. And in fact, in the last couple of polls that put out, we've put polls out showing Trump up. Fox News has put polls out showing Trump up. It's really not a clear Kamala Harris is leading narrative as the mainstream media would have you believe. And in our opinion, that's election interference. It extends to some extent to state polling as well. I took the time to count all of the state polls that were released on Real Clear Politics. And in the first 13 days of August, I picked 13 because their history only went back 13 days into July. In the first 13 days of August, there were only 28 state polls released. But in the last 13 days of July, there were 73 state polls released. And that's a really fascinating context when you see things like the fact that 2 pollsters just totally randomly decided to release results from Florida. And I will say that they looked like pretty low energy polls that showed that.
So I only play that to just show like that is what's going on. They just kind of decided, they were like, we're kind of done here. We have what we need to show the people, to bend reality. We have what we need, and we don't really need to start polling. And that's where Rasmussen's a little different. Again, I don't know these people, not getting paid for it, but just because there's a place that's polling every single day, that's where you're going to get the real results of what's happening right now. Because when you go to the mainstream media, they're just like, wow, Kamala Harris is just dominating. And there was that pop. There was that sugar high at the very beginning when people were like, oh, good golly, we don't have to vote for Joe Biden anymore. There was that pop at first, but that is dying down. That's the way sugar highs work. They kick in real hard, and then before you know it, you're Sleepy Joe, just tucking in mid-afternoon, just tucking in, going to sleep. That's the way it works. Now, I'm going to play a little bit more information from Rasmussen. Let's get into it.
Or even having a policy agenda, Harris reversed Biden's performance in the polls. Yesterday, forecaster Nate Silver published a graph of how the polling averages have changed since Harris replaced Biden. Again, Harris supposedly did this without doing any of the things candidates are expected to do. As of right now, Harris for president is largely a media creation. Is it possible that pollsters quietly changed their methodologies to give Harris an artificial boost? Are they deliberately waiting them to help her and create a demoralizing air of inevitability? It sure looks that way. Rasmussen reports polls the Trump-Harris race daily. Unlike other firms, you can bet they haven't changed their methodology. Contrary to what other pollsters would have you believe, Rasmussen's data shows Democrats are in real trouble, if it's a free and fair election, that is. In fact, today, Rasmussen has Trump leading Harris with 49% support amongst likely voters versus her 45%. Now let's bring on Mark Mitchell. He's the Rasmussen's head pollster to get his thoughts on the state of the polling industry now. Okay, Mark, even people who are Democrats are questioning how organic this surge in polling for the now Democrat candidate as opposed to the past one is, and your poll as an outlier. So can you explain to us how other pollsters are arriving at their polling?
I don't think we're an outlier, and I've been trying very hard not to be, but I'll tell you what, I look around the last couple of weeks and I think I'm in crazy town because for most of the year, the Real Clear Politics aggregate has agreed with me, and there's been a lot of mainstream pollsters that have put out polls that show Trump leading by similar margins as us. And the fundamentals of this race contextually are that basically in every poll we've ever run, Kamala Harris has underperformed Joe Biden in some way, whether it's likability or competence or election matchups. So to me, it was crazy to go through July and see that, okay, Trump has basically held the same lead he had before, despite being shot and all this in the convention. But then all of a sudden, they pick Kamala Harris and all of the polls lurch left immediately, like 4 points. It's just incredible, and it doesn't make sense to me. And I think one of the tools of the manipulation has been, we could get into individual pollsters, but one of the tools of manipulation has been that there just have not been that many polls at all out there. It's like everybody rushed to poll the week after Kamala Harris and decided to take the rest of August off. And
again, okay, so he's kind of echoing his sentiments there. But again, this is a great channel. I've been checking them out. You know, they poll every single day. Oh, yeah, let's just pull that up just so you guys can see it. Just, yeah, I would be checking this out daily. You know, if Kamala Harris is in the lead, they will report it, right? So they're doing their polling every single day. If you're on X, jump on there. You'll be able to see it. This is what they were talking about. And just so you know, the video that I just played for you, that's only 2 hours old. So that is fresh information right there. The one before that was about 8 hours old. So they are uploading pretty frequently. Election 2024, Trump 49%, Kamala 45%, and nobody even thinks to mention RFK, but RFK has the difference between the two of them, obviously. Shout out to RFK. He's trying. He's still in there. Hasn't given up yet. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that to you guys. The polling industry, like most industries as we learn, is not completely on the up and up. Again, they did take real information. There was a time where Kamala Harris was ahead, but they just kept that. And they would slightly, this changed a little bit, but they're not actually showing the current picture, the current landscape of the election, which is Trump is leading. Is it a landslide? No, but he is in the lead, despite what all the mainstream media says. Anyways, guys, just wanted to bring you all that. Like, subscribe. It helps the channel tremendously. And other than that, I'm out.